Welcome to the Post for All Season Sports Show. I'm Drew Rubenstein here with Dave Racy once again. And Dave, the hot topic is the WVU women's basketball team. Sunday's game against Baylor, winning in thrilling fashion, coming from behind. Where does that rank, all-time victories in WVU women's basketball history?
Well, I think with women's basketball, obviously it's the top. I don't think, Baylor, they don't have Brittany Griner, thank goodness, anymore, but they're still, a powerhouse team. You played them at Baylor and Waco, and yet, from statistically wise, they didn't shoot very good foul shots. They had a lot of turnovers and stuff, and according to one friend of mine, they had some calls that may have gone against them in the last couple of minutes, and they still, got the win. I don't know what more could be said of what a great victory that is. If you can win without playing maybe your best game, your A game, and knock off a team on their home floor like that says a lot. If I had to compare it to anything in the men's team, this is way back in the day when West Virginia, I think it was 1966 or 67, we came back from a 17-point halftime deficit to number one ranked Duke down in Charleston and won the game. And I mean, if they were burning couches at that time, we'd have burned couches, but they weren't doing it at that time.
Mike Carey has been head coach for a number of years. He's had a lot of successful teams, and I guess the way this team's going to be judged and remembered kind of depends on what happens here in the Big 12 tournament, NCAA tournament. But being in position to win a Big 12 regular season championship and the momentum that the program's gained, 5 ranked teams they've beaten in 2 months, where does this one rank in the 40-year history of the women's program in your mind?
Well, this is obviously their best year ever, and I think it's a tremendous accomplishment for Coach Carey. He came from Salem College. Coach Eddie passed along, went down to Salem again. He had a pretty good run there with Coach Rodriguez, and now with Coach with Carey, and he went from the men's team to the women's team, and it's taken him a little bit, but I mean they've always been competitive, but now they're more than competitive. They're a force. I think his depth and the way they play, the way he has them hustling and playing and stuff. So I think this season's a success already. I mean, I know they don't want to rest on their laurels and stuff, but when you look back on the season, they've made a name for themselves nationally, and this should only help their recruiting, which obviously they've done a pretty good job already. So I think this is a big feather in their cap, and it's almost you don't know where the limit is on this team, because he's done it and then switch conferences, the whole 9 yards, and there's been no excuses. Same travel, same situations. Last year lost his starting center early, and they just compete no matter who's out there playing.
You touched on the growth of the program, and that leads to 2 questions I wanted to ask you. And first, starting with the competitive side. Women's basketball historically has been dominated by a group of 5 or 6 schools. You got the Connecticut, you got Tennessee, you got UConn, you've got, I said UConn, Tennessee, Duke, Stanford in recent years. Baylor certainly is up there. And I think people have kind of wondered, can West Virginia crack into that echelon, and what are your thoughts there? Can they, and are they getting close?
I think they have. I think they're there. I don't think that this is a fly-by-night. I mean, we have some seniors on the team that they will lose next year, but I say the recruiting has been good. They've always had good depth, and I don't see. I'd say we're there. I think that was a statement game. Yes, they could make many more statements as this tournament goes on. But the competition is getting a little better too. I mean, last year Delaware knocked us out, and I realized they had one really super player, but nevertheless, you never know who can come up, just like the men's thing. And I think you may have to give maybe a little bit of credit to Coach Huggins for this, because I don't think Mike Carey would have been able to pull off having that basketball facility built just for the women's team. And Coach Huggins, I've been told, has said, hey, they get what we get, and so I think he's been a big booster for that, and that helps when both basketball coaches share and things like that. I think in some places it's not quite like that.
And it's going to be interesting to see. This leads to the second question of it, what the crowd's going to be for tonight's game against Kansas. Can the crowds, Mike Carey in past years has been more adamant, I guess, in his displeasure with the small crowds. This year it seems he's taken on more of the tone of encouraging and saying, hey, I've got one of the special groups, maybe a once in a coach's lifetime type of teams, and people need to rally, and that's been kind of his message. But can West Virginia really rally and behind this team and get to a point where the crowds are bigger and more consistent, or is it just it is what it is in West Virginia with women's basketball? And
yeah, I don't think we'll be like Tennessee or Connecticut where you're selling it out. I mean, even men's basketball sometimes. I remember Jody Gardner when he coached here said he sometimes complained that West Virginia fans sometimes don't show up for their team, but if they're playing somebody good, like the men's team will be playing Kansas, there'll be a big crowd because a lot of people want to see Kansas, and they want to see if West Virginia can beat them, obviously. I don't think that, last year I think the Baylor game with the women, it was 13,000 because they wanted to see Brittany Griner and Baylor.
Right.
I think that's our problem still a little bit, that people will come out to see the games if, they're playing someone they also want to see. If the men would play Duke or North Carolina, you don't even have to advertise or anything else. People will come to that thing. And unfortunately, in women's basketball, so the Baylor situation, I don't know if there are the opponents out there that will bring that many fans. But they just don't seem to really, show up a lot for the team. It's going to take some more time, I think, with the women to get more crowds in there.
And one thing I think that's interesting, though, that could lead to the bigger crowds is Asia Bussey and Bria Holmes, not to take away from the rest of the team, but I'm not sure West Virginia's had two talented players like that on a team together, and those two in particular are probably two of the best who have ever played in the Coliseum. And I know Mike Carey said Bria Holmes, by the end of her career, she's only a sophomore right now, he thinks has the potential to be the very best and set a lot of records. And if there is something that could rally people, it may be that individual talent. I know people are still drawn to the team chemistry and seeing the whole team, but that said, having a couple highlights like those two could help elevate it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever, we've gotten good players there, but I don't know if we've gotten that kind of, say a Carmelo Anthony type recruit or things like that, or a Brittany Griner even for that matter. Not going to get someone that tall, but it'd be interesting to see how recruiting goes. And it seems again like maybe maybe because of the way they play, so many players they use that, some of them don't stand out as much as maybe they could. And but I think they have a good team. I think people like the effort they give. Of course, people always like when they win. That's why people go to games, so we can win, and they can win and see their team win and feel good.
And that's what should make this run interesting from here on out. It should be a fun one. And Dave, appreciate your time once again.
Thank you.
Please continue to check TheDPost.com for the latest on the Mountaineers. Thanks for watching today.